Are you salvaging Barnwood? Are you using a contract? Let me explain. Welcome to the Den. The name's Troy, and my business, part of my business anyways, is directly related to the sourcing, the salvaging, and the reclaiming of authentic reclaimed wood. What does that mean, you ask? Simply put, the sourcing part is qualifying the wood that we want, actually going out and sourcing it, physically going out to see it, to meet with the landlord. My lord. You got me, good one. He's still laughing. Anyways, come on, let's go. The salvage part is the actual taking down of the building. Then it goes on to the magic, and that's the reclaim. And that's when we turn this beautiful wood into feature walls, small project builds, like you will see on our channel throughout some of our other videos. This video is intended to take a little closer look, a little deeper dive into the technical side of the landowner's agreement, the contract, you might call it. It sets a baseline for everybody. It's setting forth expectations, creating a relationship. The most important step that you're about to take during that whole sourcing of the Barnwood. I could have easily dropped a downloadable PDF in the description. Instead, what I have for you is a link to Grammarly in the description. Free version is plenty good enough, and I promise you it'll help your writing. When I say writing is because you're gonna have to write this thing. You're not only writing it, you're actually creating it. That's the important part, you're creating it. So it's your thoughts going into the creation process and coming out in the form of a working copy contract. If I missed anything in here, or you feel like I missed something, there's more ways than just the way that I'm teaching, you guys. Feel free to jot down any notes in the comments. I will 100% for sure read them. Oh, hey, I got another comment. Another great resource for you will be just the Google search. Just type in contracts, right? How to make contract. Demolition type contracts. If you can, you might even be able to download one from there. But I highly recommend that you make this yourself. It really sets in your mind what exactly is going to be done overall as an umbrella. Something to consider when beginning to write your landowner's agreement is the tone of voice that you're going to be using. It's going to be a firm tone of voice. And if you are using Grammarly, it'll actually say right in the bottom right-hand corner, it'll kind of give you the emotion of how you're coming across. And being firm, that's not a bad thing at all. It just means that you're being direct. You're also being concise. It's structured in a way for readability. Lean in here. We're gonna set the tone. You wanna set the tone. Furthermore, setting the tone, the title. I have the Reclaimed Wood Landowner's Agreement. Okay, that is the title. That's what is in this. Setting the tone, it's a structured format. Okay, this is this agreement between these two parties. It was made on this day, and let's get into it. This first page is more of a summary. It's a reference point, and it's really just an overall view of what's going on and the details. Some of the most important details, right as a snapshot. Following the title, I just went into 2 paragraphs of what it is I'm out to do when I go to these old buildings and what to expect out of this agreement. Terms and conditions. So I only broke that into 2 sections. The terms and conditions that are the same for everybody, and then a section for specific terms and conditions. That's the part where special considerations can be entered between you and the landowner, because each building, each job differs from one to the other, and of course you got to make everybody happy, and this is how you do it. You do it by documenting it and signing off on it on both sides. That's how you're moving forward with this. Trust me, it's amazing what this actually does. Setting everything forward. Everyone knows what's going on, the start date and the end date. That's important. Okay, here's an example. If you take a building down, okay, there's yourself and 2 other people. So there's 3 peoples taking this steeple down, or barn, or house, or whatever. Generally with a little bit of equipment and well thought out, this whole process can be done between 5 and 7 days. And that's a substantial sized building. And it can be cleaned right down to the concrete and ready to be reused or disposed of. If you're new to this and maybe this is your first time or you haven't taken down very many buildings and everyone's a brand new experience, this is why this is also a working copy, because you can come back to this and you can keep on adding to it or subtracting until it makes sense, right? It makes sense for the way that you're taking these buildings down. The last thing on this title page is just to lock in the address, contact numbers, things like that, email. That's their title page. That's the very first page. Our very first section in the terms and conditions is the conduct of work. What is the scope of what work is going to be entailed? We made it easy to read. We broke it into steps, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. You're welcome to have more or less. I'd recommend having at least 3 phases. Think about everything. Think about the whole process. Just think about it as if, sit there on the couch, close your eyes, and just start thinking about driving in there for the very first time into this building during the sourcing process. Okay, you're gonna walk around, you're gonna have a look at safety concerns, hazards, identify them, maybe flag them, take some pictures, put all that kind of stuff into words. This A is gonna establish a safety mindset and it's gonna throw off a good vibe. Don't get me wrong, this is and can be very dangerous. You're going out to an abandoned building, you're taking it down. Okay, so there's a lot of booby traps out there. So if you got your eyes open, and you're out there checking everything and you're making sure everything's safe and you've kind of established the hazards, the next step is to establish what you're gonna do to mitigate the hazards or completely eliminate them. Phase 1, phase 2, you start going into what you're actually out there to do, and that's to get wood, right? Either for sale, resale, or for your own projects or whatever. You want the wood. Probably because it's so expensive in the store right now. Yeah, that could be one reason. Trust me, you're gonna get some beautiful wood out of a building. But before you can touch it and turn it into like this here, our desktop, you gotta go through this process. So break it down for the remaining phases, I'm gonna eliminate the roof. Phase 2, maybe we're gonna work on the inside of the building. We're gonna work on this, we're gonna work on that. And just kind of break it down, kind of maps out for another party, how's this going down, right? So if they know that, phase 3 is taking the roof off, and they're out for their drive and they say they see that the roof is off, they're like, oh, okay, phase 3 is done. Nope, they've only got 2 more phases left. It just keeps things rolling and everyone can kind of stay on board. That's important. This next section, you could explain further on some of those points, maybe dive deeper into the safety side, maybe dive in and say, hey, look, I have insurance, I'm covered, should anything happen, you're not liable. I can provide proof upon request of my certificate or a receipt of purchase, whatever has to be kind of filled out, but making sure that, they know that you're covered. And by the way, go get covered if you're doing something like this. I can't really advise you anymore in that aspect, but start poking around, make a phone call to an insurance company and start there, kind of start in where you are. That's something I'll leave up to you to enter in here or not, but I'll tell you what, if you do enter that in, it's an important selling point and everybody feels better about this. Some of the other smaller things that we put in there, some respect to entering the land. Sometimes these are in yard sites. We try and save those for more of the winter months, the just in case wood, because they're easy to get to, but a lot of these are out in the field, okay? So farmers going out in the field and nothing worse than like a rutted up field that they got to work up, and it's just kind of more of a hassle than anything, and it just leaves a bad taste in the mouth. So if we just have some access to land, so we laid out some framework there, so we're not going in there when it's like raining or expected to rain or get rained inside and then have to 4-wheel drive it out, right? Just kicking mud up. So, you know, we have some consideration there. That shows something too, that you're like, oh, okay, this person, you know, understands how my operation works, or at least is attempting to try and understand. And then, you know, don't be shy to mention in there what happens if there's a default on anything that's listed above. Maybe just write out a solution right away. So if there ever is a issue in the future, you have something direct that both of you signed on how to remedy it, you know? So like, you know, plans change, hey, I'm gonna call you up right away. Either party, something to think about, right? And at this, like, you can talk about, you know, you can go in further and go into any of the other things like nail control, for example. That's always a big one too. They're like, okay, so is there just gonna be nails everywhere? And be like, no, actually, all our nails, at least 80% of them, you know, go into a pail, and we actually keep them all because who knows, maybe you're selling them or scrap metal or whatever. But make sure you have a plan for the nails, and when it's in here, actually follow through on that plan too. That's important, because it's one thing to write it, but it's one thing to write it and do it. Do it because you're writing it, or write it because you're doing it. I believe write it because you're doing it. Don't be afraid to dive into the end of the job too, right? The site cleanup. Who's responsible for what here? Because there's big price tags to this kind of stuff. You know, if you got to get a traco in to dig a hole and bury the concrete, for example, or what about the rest of the waste wood? Because even though you're taking the wood off the barn, there's still going to be waste. You know, there's going to be rotten spots. You know, that kind of goes back to your hazard. Like, a lot of times the roof, there's a spot or a whole thing's leaking, and there's a spot where there's like a hay pile, right? That has been sucked in moisture and it's rotted out the floor. Okay, so soft spots like that, there's gonna be waste. What's gonna happen with that? The side in here. This is where things get custom. And basically it's just like a blank spot with a whole bunch of words, or a whole bunch of spaces on it, that we can just write it out however we see fit. We need more space. There's the back of it, and generally I'm filling this thing out and the landowner's filling it out, and it's generally over the tailgate of the truck because we're at the building itself, or we're around the kitchen table, you know, having a coffee, because this is also your introduction. And I'll tell you what, when you put this into action, here's what it's gonna do, okay? So thank you for following along up to this point. I know it's not our average video, but it's important, and I'm doing this for people like you that have made it this far in the video, because obviously this is what you're into and this is what you wanna do. So how this is gonna save your butt, I'll give you an example, all right? Here's an example. Before I had this, it was just a handshake. Thank you, I'm gonna take your barn down. And they're like, yes, you take my barn down. I had 2 other people with me to witness it, at the very least. And what we came out with it was that this person wanted X amount of the 2x6s for some kind of a project. And we agreed on which ones. And I said, yep, fine, you can have those. We get the rest. Everything wood is ours. So this actually took, well, it took probably a month to take this whole building down. We weren't there every day, but we were there when we can because we had other commitments. And it seemed like every day that we were going out there, the pile that we had taken down and that was there had shrunk or had completely disappeared. And we were writing this stuff down of what we had, dimensions, you know, so we had inventory of what was going on. And we noticed from our inventory it wasn't matching up to what was actually there. And it so happened that the the landowner just kept coming over and just taking like a little bit of wood or a stack of wood, whatever he thought that he should have for his own, and he was stashing it away. Now what am I to do, right? I'm like, hey, you said, and then he'll be like, you get the rest of the wood. So I just went with it, and from that point forward I was like, okay, this can't happen again. So I let it slide. I didn't know what else to do. I let it slide. We just started taking our wood home as soon as we were collecting it, and that's kind of how we handled it. But that doesn't happen anymore. It's right here. It can't happen. Nobody else can come in from wherever and start taking wood off this building. Can't happen. It's written right in here. That wood is now ours for doing all the work. Here's another example. This is where something like this, setting the tone and setting the expectations, also brings forward the other person's expectations. That's why there's that last section. Now here's one that we had. There was a building that we were interested in. We had spoke with them. They were interested. Generally, I let people come to me when barns come about, but this particular one, I actually went to them. So there's a huge difference when you go to the source or the source comes to you. There's a huge difference. Either way, you're still gonna need this contract. Man, here's what this contract saved us. Saved us as in the future headaches or potential foreseeable headaches. So they took this home, had to read over it. Very good, completely understand. There's a lot of information there, I want you to understand it. They came back with my paper just scratched out and reworded and ink. It was like it came back as it's like I handed in my paper at university for correction, and it came back completely corrected and a letter grade on it. And so it turns out that they had completely their own idea how they wanted this all to go down, and the terms they weren't agreeable. Like, they just weren't agreeable. Basically, I was going to be taking this building down and paying for it for a very long time. So, so right there, we're just like, okay, thank you. I don't believe that this is the correct building. The terms, we cannot work under these, but thank you for your time and consideration. We will pass your name on to someone else that we know of that takes buildings down. Yeah, no, we didn't. Completely outrageous, but that's basically how it went. So we just saved ourselves like so much headache in the future, because if you just went on a handshake on that one and you guys had that conflicting of ideas of how the outcome was going to be, there's going to be trouble. It's going to be trouble. You don't want trouble. There's going to be trouble. So that owner's agreement, we went out, we were actually going out. I went out and spent days sitting down for full afternoons with landowners around here, just hashing out, what's responsible, what would be respected, how would you feel, how would I feel, how would we feel, and it eventually just came, right? It just came to be on paper. Of course, there's a lot of work that went into this. But I don't mind sharing it at all, because it's completely evolved from that point, and another year from now it's going to completely evolve again. So as long as you get into that process and just start going with it, good things are going to come your way. Barnwood's going to come your way.